Okay, now we're going to work on her hair, and the best part about learning how to do a doll with, like once you have the doll body finished, and you can see here that her doll body is almost completed, but it also gives you an idea of, how it progresses, and then you get to see a different opinion or a different viewpoint or a design rather of a different doll, and it gives you different ideas so that if you wanted to make a mermaid of your own, you could, and so a lot of designers will take hair, put fibers of different types together and sew down the middle of them, and then use that sew line as their hair line down the middle where it parts. I have done that in the past, but I like doing this because this allows me to put the hair in as I want it to and make it longer where I want to make it. It's just, and for me it's faster. Everybody's different in what they like. Okay, now what you have to determine is, usually by now you've sculpted the face, okay, but right now we're going to work on the hair. So what I'm going to do is I've got to determine which is the back of my head and which is the front, naturally. So if you look to the side, here's my occipital bone, and here's the front of the head. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line down the center. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a line here, here, here. Now all the while I'm keeping in mind about the ear. So you can take an invisible ink, disappearing ink pen and draw where you think the ear is going to go. Okay, that tells you where your hairline is going to come to. Okay, so then you draw up here. Okay, so how do I get my ear on the same side of each side? Look where you placed your ear. Okay, and get your trusty hat pin or corsage pin and center it and push it straight through. Okay, voila. And I know that where I went in was the very center of my ear. And if you want to get really specific, you can get your gauge out and you can measure here to here. Some people do that. I don't. I've done it so long now, but that's how I would do it if you're unsure. Okay, so I know that's where my, see, it's already disappearing. Okay, now I know that my other hairline is going to go right over here, and then I'm going to meet that side. Okay, so this is basically my hairline. Alright, now I'm going to pull this out because I already have my ear in place. If it starts to fade, remark it. That's really important. You want to kind of keep your markings. At this point, now I'm going to keep drawing up the back of the head. Okay, I'm going to draw a line down the center, and I'm going to start drawing lines this way. Okay, and when I draw a line here, that's where I'm going to stitch at too. So I'm going to continue to draw lines. Okay, so you can see the pattern that I've drawn. You saw how I did the ear, you saw how I did the ear placement, and now you know this is a grid, and these lines represent how you're going to sew your hair on. So this would be where I'm going to start sewing. I could come up here and sew this here, but if I felt like I wanted her hair to be very, very thick and bushy, then I would come in and I would sew in between these lines too, where the dots are. Okay? Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. It depends on the fabric I'm using, or if I'm using yarn or whatever I'm using. It just depends. So that would depend on how thick or heavy or long you want your head. Now remember, if you make your hair too heavy, and yarn does have a tendency to do that, the big chunky yarn, you're going to have something in this head that goes down into the body to brace it well. like a 1/4 inch dowel rod, okay, is what I would recommend. You need something very strong. That way your head's not going boop, you know, like that. You don't want that. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to get her started, and what I've done is I have already cut, and I'm using my batak, and it looks like a western fabric. You can even see probably a boot there, some cactus, but amazingly enough, when you cut this up, it really does not, it kind of changes its look. It no longer to me looks western. It really to me looks more like muted batak colors. So what I've done is I've taken a 1/2 yard of fabric, and I folded it over once and twice, and then I trimmed it, and you can see where I folded it over because it's not completely cut. See, it's like solid right here, and this is the part that you hold onto, put onto your doll, that line right there. Okay, and to give you an idea, right now I'm going to show you, you secure it with pins, which is a little big for this. Use smaller pins, that's what I normally do, all the way around this, and then you just stitch it into place, okay, without breaking your thread. You don't want to cut your thread. You want one continuous thread going up through the head for the hair. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my bottom section. So I know I don't need a piece this long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my gauge, because it's just easier this way, and I'm going to measure. I'm going to pull my gauge marker back, so I know that this is 1 inch here, and so that's 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to take my marker, I'm going to put it at 1.5 inches, and I know that when I cut my fabric, I'm going to cut 1.5 inches off. And that's a very easy way to do it. Now, here's what you want to do. It's your choice. You can either try and work this the way you've sliced your fabric up. You can either work this out to where you can cut through the center of a strip, or you can go to the end of it, and what I like to do is fold the edges before I start to sew, because it makes it look better on her hairline, and I'll show you that. So I'm going to go a little beyond 1.5 inches. So if I know that I'm at 1.5 inches at this point, but to cut it off even would be to cut it off here beyond my marker. Okay, that's what I'm going to do, and then that gives me some seam allowance to fold the edges under before I start to sew it on. So I'm going to cut it here a little bit beyond my 1.5 inches, and in doing so I have saved, I didn't have to cut a strip in half, a long way strip this way. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to the head, and this is very simple. I mean, once I show you this part, you're going to be like, oh wow, okay, this is simple. So I'm going to pinch that into a fold. I'm going to place it on my edge right there. Okay, now I'm going to take smaller needle, and which I like to use just the white ball, with the white ball on the end, or however, smaller needle, and I'm going to press that. Now I want to stay true to my line. And remember, if you think you have to redraw your lines while you're doing this, do it. I'm going to stick one here. Okay. Now, when I get to here, I want to keep that curve. So I'm going to add another one right at the top here, because you want to stay true to that line. And then I'm going to add another one here. Okay, and then I'm going to turn this side before I lay it down and stick a pin in it. And that makes it nice and neat, and when you do the hairline, whip down the hairline side, it's going to be nice and neat. So as you pull your hair, you flip your hair back, you're going to see a nice hairline. So this is what you do, and now I would sew this into place, and I already have some upholstery thread is what I use with my number 8 embroidery needle, because I'm going to be doing close handwork. It has a shorter needle, it's sharp, but it has a big eye, and I like that. So I'm going to go underneath because I want to hide my knot. Okay. Alright. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to stitch this down at the edge and come back up back. Okay. Now, I've been reviewing this video as I've done it, and I noticed I say okay a lot, so I'm going to try to fix that in the future. Now, you're probably going to need a needle grabber, or I'll tell you something else that works great. If you don't have a needle grabber and you live out like I do, take your hemostats and pull, and it works just fine. And I usually do that, or the needle grabber. It depends on what I have handy. Now I'm going to pull and secure that, and I'm going to remove this pin. Now I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to go in where I came out. I'm going to hold my fabric down with my pin, and it's just basically a running stitch. I'm going to pull that out, and you just keep stitching across. Okay, I'm going to go in where I came out. I'm going to remove that pin, and I'm going to stitch across. And this is very easy to do. I'm going to keep, you know, always follow the line that you've drawn, and don't veer from that line. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in. I'm going to come out. Now I am grabbing batting and the fabric underneath for sure, otherwise it's just going to fall off. Remember, it's kind of common sense, but I had to say that. And I'm going to go in where I came out, and I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to hold it down with my thumb, because you see how that popped out like that. So you hold it down with another finger that you feel comfortable with, and you come out at the edge. Okay, now you have the base of her neck finished. Now I think, because of the nature of this fabric and how, you know, it's very soft, I think what I want to do is I want to make her hair more bushy. So I'm going to also do the dots in between and make it really bushy in the back and on top, because we're going to do a little different hairstyle than Minerva's on this particular doll. But on Minerva's, I just went for each one, and that's the reason why is because I used a muslin that was a little more that wasn't as smooth, and I also gave Minerva long hair, much longer than this. So that's why I only went and did the lines that I the main hair lines that I drew in, instead of the dots. Let me redraw this so you can see. You can see how it disappears very quickly when you're working. Okay? Now that you know how to do this part, you need to draw your lines on your doll. I've included a pattern for that. So go ahead and do that now. If you need to refer back to what I did about the ears and the hairline in the front and around the ears, that's okay. Do that and and you decide how thick you want your doll's hair to be, and make your dots. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew from here up to the back of the head, and you do the same. And when I get to this point, I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, bye-bye. Now I've got it up to this point right here, and I wanted to show y'all this fabric. And if you're going to do a printed cotton, and this is a high quality fabric, this has a lot of stitches, a lot of threads per square inch. If I were to hold this up to a window, you would not see any light coming through it. That's how good this fabric is. And I try to use high quality fabric on my dolls because they last longer. So, that being said, because this is batak and because it's a little bit thin and silky, I wasn't getting the bulk in her hair that I wanted. So, I'm going to show you a trick to help you if you're saying, hey, you know, even if I'm doing the dots and the lines, it just isn't getting as bulky as I want. Okay, so what you need to do is measure the next line up. Remember, you're going to fold your edge in. Okay, get to that point there. Put it here. Measure it all the way around, keeping in mind that you're going to fold the end. So I'm adding, you know, I'm going to go to about here because I'm going to fold that under this part right here. So I'm going to take this now. Let me put her back a little bit. I'm going to take this that I've measured out on her head, and I'm going to double it by folding the same length. And I'm just going to fold it like this. Fold it. Okay, lay it flat on it, back on the fabric. Okay, just like that. So now I know where my end is going to be, which is right here. So I know that I need to cut my extra fabric, my doubled fabric. Let's see here. Right there. Right here. So I'm going to do that. So, let's see if I can get it where I can see what I'm doing here. Okay. Hang on here, let me get it straightened out so I can. So I know I'm going to cut it right there. Alrighty. It's kind of hard to do when you're starting like that. There we go. Now I'm going to discard the rest of this for now, and I'm going to take the piece that I doubled over. Now see how much thicker that looks when you take the fabric hair, is what we're going to call it, and you fold it over. When you fold it over, okay, on itself, it makes it a lot more fuller. So what I'm doing is I'm adding one layer on the dots line, and I'm bulking it up and I'm putting on 2 layers on the solid lines. So that's how I'm doing it. So basically what I'm doing is, let me move this out of the way so I can show you. On the dots, I am doing 1 layer. On the bulky lines, I'm doubling the fabric back on itself, and I'm double layer here. And that's giving me more of the volume that I want. Okay? So, on this solid line, because I've already done my double line, and I kind of brought it down low so you could see the dots. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a double because of the solid line. So I'm going to finish up these 2. These actually I have 3 left. So I have a solid, the dots, and I'm going to double my fabric up again here at the crown so that the back of her head is very full. Okay? So when I get back, I will show you how to finish up the head. Okay, I'm going to do this part with you so that you're very clear on it. I buried my knot up in here and I brought it out here, the thread, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to go into the front and come back out where, to make sure that that's very firm and in. Sorry, push my camera. Okay, so okay, see how that tacked down there? Okay, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to come back out. Alright, now I'm going to pull this needle out because I don't need it anymore for tacking. I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to move it away from her head, and then you'll never have any troubles with the hair getting caught in it. Okay, now that's tacked down. Now on both sides I'm still folding the ends into each other. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. Whoops, drop my needle. I'm going to come down here, and then I'm going to come up where my next line, sew line, is going to be, which is right there because of that line there. Okay, I'm going to pull, and always kind of watch the thread and put it in a different direction. Okay, make sure that's folded under and you secure it. Okay, so now my thread is lined up to have the next part sewn. Okay, now I'm going to take my hair. Can you believe this is a ½ yard used already? Because that's all I have left. So right here. So what I'm going to have to do is cut more hair. Isn't that amazing? Amazing that you can put a ½ yard of fabric hair on a doll like this, and the doll's head be as small as it is, because the doll's head probably is not 2 inches. It might be 2 inches before you sculpt it, you know. I think it probably is. Alright, now I'm going to take, I know that I'm going to fold my ends, so I'm going to look at that. Okay, so I'm going to cut that. Right about here. You could easily use a yard for your doll on her hair. I believe that. Okay, so I'm going to fold this end and place it down. And remember, I said you're going to do this line all the way up, because the front hairline is going to be sewn on that line. Okay, so I'm going to secure this with a pin. Okay, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to fold this over like this. Okay, I'm going to secure it as well. And be careful when you're doing this not to prick your fingers on the other side, because it will come out. See? Ow! Like that. Demonstration of a pricked finger. Okay, that's okay. I love all my customers, and I'm hoping you're enjoying all this. It's worth it. You're worth it. You're worth a pin prick. Okay, now I'm going to come in over here, because that's where my there we go. Come up through here. Take your string and move it away from your hair over the back of your hand, and you want to make sure you're getting all this, and you want to use my, there we go, you want to pull that. Okay, you could even do this, you could even hold your hemostat. I called them forceps at one point, but they are kind of like forceps. But anyway, your hemostat, you can even sew with your hemostat if you wanted to. I don't like doing it, but it's an option, especially when I'm trying to show you something. And I don't want my hand in the way. It's a good thing to do. Okay, so there we go. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go in and come back out. Oop. Go back in where you came. Make sure your needle is embedded in the head, otherwise it's not going to stay. Okay. Alrighty, there you go. Now I'm going to put down my hemostats. I'm going to pull out the pins. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to come up to this level here. This is the next level that I'm going to sew. And that's my starting point right there. So now that you have an idea of how to do the side of the head, I'm going to finish this side and this side, and when I get back I'm going to do the front with you. Okay? See you in a minute. Now I have the sides of her head done here. Okay? And here. And you can see she has her part right there. I still have plenty of thread on my needle. And now I want to show you the back of her head. Okay, you can see the pattern there that was on, by now you should be at this point. And my point is that the pattern you drew on her head, this is the pattern. But we don't want to leave her without a crown. So hopefully you can see that, yeah. Because you can see right there, we want to put a piece right here where she has a nice bushy crown, because we want her hair to come out and up. So we're going to add, maybe, it depends on how much, you know, you have to, it depends on the fabric you're using, like I said, how bushy, but you want to give it lift. You know, you want her to look, you know, very, very pretty. So we're going to give that lift, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And then now with Minerva, her hair was much, much longer. So keep that in mind. Probably twice as long as it is now. And but this is how you're going to do Minerva's head. Okay, same exact way. Now I'm going to come into the front here, and you have a choice. You can either leave it like this if you like this, okay, where she just has the part. But I like to add a small strip here in the front to take away a little bit of the huge forehead. Okay, so let me put this down a second. I'm going to take a strip, and I did, by the way, have to cut more. So once again, I'm going to measure from point to point, and also remember, fold under. So I'm going to start here. It's kind of almost like giving her bangs. You know, we all have bangs, right? So I think that's the point I'm trying to make. We also want her, when she pushes her hair back, to look pretty too. So that's one reason why I do this particular technique. I'm going to take this and I'm going to sew it right up to that line. So I'm taking my pin and I'm literally moving that fabric and placing it right there. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pay attention to how far down I went. Okay, so I went at the brow area. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it down to the brow area on this side, and I'm going to give myself enough that I can fold that under like I did the other side. So I'm going to cut this part off. Okay. And I'm going to fold this under. It's a pretty big fold, so that I can come out right here at the other eyebrow. right there. So then I'm going to get another pin. I'm going to put it in here, and you can take your pin and allow your fabric to travel with your pin, and you want right on that hairline. Right on that hairline. You don't want to see any of her head. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle. Now you're going to have a full head of hair, so your needle, you're going to pay attention to where you leave it. Okay, so here's my needle. And using 39 inches of thread was a very, very good idea, because you've got to have enough thread. You want one whole piece of thread for the hair. Okay, you don't want to break thread and rethread, and it wastes time, and this is more secure, and your doll's going to last longer. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this hair back. Let's see if you can see what I'm doing. Okay. I'm going to pull this hair back. I'm going to embed my needle. I'm going to come out right here into the edge of that hairline there, right by where it's secured. I'm going to pull out, and I'm going into the head. I'm letting my needle travel because I need a starting point for sewing, so that's what I'm doing. So I'm traveling through the head to get to that point, like you've seen me do many other times. Okay, and you can do this technique with ragdoll, because this is considered a ragdoll category. So, uh-oh, I unthreaded my needle. Huh. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to pull this, and I'm going to rethread my needle. It came off. That does happen. Okay. Now, I've got my needle rethreaded, and now I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to go back in where I came out. I'm going to embed my needle. I'm going to go into the head, and I'm going to come out at the fabric, and I'm going to, and it's just a running stitch just like we did the rest of the head. Okay. Alright, now my tail, oh there we go, my tail was caught in there. I'm going to pull this needle out because that's secured. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I want to go back down through here and do it again and loop around and come back up. Just to tack it and make sure it's firm. So now I'm going to pull this needle out. I'm going to stay near my the line of the hairline. I don't want to show any scalp in this area. And I'm going to come back through. Okay, now I'm going to go around. I'm going to do it again. Hopefully, see this. Good. Okay. And I'm going to go in, come back out. Take my needle out because I'm secured already. Now I'm going to turn my head around, and I'm going to secure this again by going back in where I came out. And I'm going to, it's almost like tacking it, you know. Okay. Just to make sure it's secure on the edge here, because you don't want that to flip up. It wouldn't look right when you move her hair back. Okay. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to make a knot right here in between the layers where you can't see it, and just a double knot. I'm not, just like you normally do. That's one. I'm going to do a second one. Okay, now I'm going to do a third one. I want to make sure that's really secure. Okay, and it is, so I'm going to cut this right there. Okay, now I'm going to show you. Now what you do is you take her hair on this part and you pull it back. You lay it back. Okay, now what's going to happen is you just tug on it and work with it, because it is long. Move this down here. And Minerva has a crown, and we're going to review that in a second here. Okay, now what you do is you look at it, and you want to look at, and you're trying to create a scalp line for her. And you can see the distance now between her. This is her forehead. Now you have a more natural scalp line for your eyebrow that's going to sit right about here, because this is our eye. Okay, so the eyebrow is going to come right about here, and that gives her a decent forehead. She doesn't look like an egghead. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and look at the whole deal. I'm going to push this under, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack right here and right here, okay, because I want that to stay down. So I'm going to find my needle. I have a knot in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to move it forward. Well, first of all, I need to always hide your knot, especially if you're going to do around the face. This can be clipped, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to anchor this down, come back through here, okay, see how that's wanting to anchor down now, and that looks a lot nicer. And you say, well, Annie, what are you going to do with that string sticking up there? Okay, so I'm going to turn the head, I'm going to go back where I came through, okay, and I'm going to come back out where I went in. Move the hair so you can see this. Okay, I'm going to push that. There we go. See? Oops. Be careful doing that. You can unthread your needle using your hemostats that way. But okay, so I'm tacking that, and now it's just looking nice and a lot more neat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, remember, you don't want to break your thread. You want to keep one whole thread going. So I'm going to go through the head right here, and I'm going to come out over here. Okay, and I want to come out, let's see, down in here. That's where I want to come. And you're not needle sculpting at this point, you're just sending the needle through the head so that you can come to this side and tack this side down and make it look nice and neat. So I'm going to flip this part under. See here. This. And I'm going to come up. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to come up through my fabric right here. Okay. I'm going to get my hemostat because it's just easier to show you and pull out. It's a little bit tough. It's a really strong thread, so that's what you want. Okay, now it's forming around the face. Now I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to come in here. I'm going to right back down. I'm putting my needle in about a thread, 2 threads over where I came out, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come back out where I came in, just like that. Get my hemostat. Pull this out. Okay. Now, when you look at her now, she looks more together, and this part can be clipped. So let's clip that part. Okay. Okay, now she looks nice and neat around her hairline. Pull this back some more too. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to embed my needle here. Okay, and I'm going to go out the bottom of the head. I'm not trying to needle sculpt, I'm just trying to get rid of that. Okay, just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap 3 times, embed my knot. So 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to come here, go out this way. I'm going to bury that. See, it's gone. And now we're going to. Now you don't even know that I buried a needle there, a knot there, and you didn't know that the string was coming through. So this is how Minerva's head is done, and when we do her crown, let me show you here. When we do her crown, yeah. See how the crown lays on her hairline, and it's nice and neat and crisp looking, and that's what you want. Ooh, I'm looking at you. And the back of her crown looks like this, and we're going to have another section in our class to do this. Now for the beginners, I'd say paper clay. It's easy to do. You do have to let it sit overnight and harden. I used Primo, and you can use Primo too if you're familiar with it. And I show you how to do that in that part of the class. So when we get back, we'll continue on, and now that we've done the face and the hair, we're going to move forward and paint her face. Alright, I'll see you in a minute.